Renewed Mind Revolution Podcast. A place that empowers, encourages, and informs. We're breaking through, we're rising strong. A brand new mindset where we belong. Empowered voices, hearts aligned. Encouraging truth, renewed in mind. It's the revolution. Let your spirit soar. We're here to lift you, give you so much more. Encourage and power, informed with love. A renewed mind journey, grace from above. Stepping in the purpose of wisdom lead, planting the seeds of faith we need.
Welcome and welcome again to Renewed Mind Revolution Podcast with your host, Michelle Kakal. As always, it is my honor and it is my pleasure to be able to come on, share some tips and some tools with you that I know will assist you in becoming a better version of yourself. Now, this is our last podcast for this year. This is December the 11th of 2025. December the 11th, 2025. So this is our summary of 2025. And the only thing that would make me come back and do something before 2026 would have to be something very special in order for me to come and do something else. So this is like our end of the year summary of everything of 2025. Normally, I hit certain topics that concern people during the year 2025 or 2024 or whatever year we're dealing with, right? So I do an end-year podcast every year, kind of sum up some topics, major topics, but this time I'm going to go into some details with you. I'm going to hit some political, some social, some pop culture. I'm going to hit some things that we have all seen, unless you are living up under a rock or in a cave. And even if you're living in a cave, I'm thinking somebody will come and tell you, right? Knock on your wall. Okay. So everybody should know some of these topics that we're going to discuss to sum up the year of 2025. Now, to connect this, what we do here, the connection is there has been so much, right? And so here on this podcast, we always try to talk about, how can we get through things? How can we press through things using some healthy tools and healthy tips? And how can we, reset and regain momentum? And how can we adjust? And how can we learn? How can we grow? Right? Because on this podcast, we always talk about it is never too late to be great. It's never too late to reset, start all over again. So I completely still believe in that. And so in order for us to be realistic, right, about how to adjust and how to reset and how to move forward, then we have to deal with certain topics that affect us, right? And then there's going to be topics that might not affect you personally, but it's something that you heard, and it might, be some people that you looked up to, or it might have been some people that you appreciated their art or their music or whatever it is. And now all of a sudden you're hearing all these things, and it might, begin to question, things about your interpretation or ability to choose good characters, right? But we do know that people are flawed and nobody's perfect, but these are just, certain things that, we all have to face and deal with when we, want to look at certain people who are I got air quotes going, celebrity status and so forth. So that's the pop culture that we're going to look at. And we're not going to go into a big deal about pop culture, but it's one part of this that I do want to share because it's my show, and I'm going to just say what bothers me about this issue. Okay, so some of the things we're going to deal about, that we're going to talk about, is going to be we don't talk about a lot here, but we're going to talk about some major events that happen here in our country, United States of America, major events across the world, right? And we're going to talk about social changes, and we're going to talk about pop culture. So we already discussed that. What I want to tell you is a heads up for 2026. There will be some major changes in 2026 for this podcast. We're going to do a complete revamping of a lot of our topics, a lot of things that we address, a lot of things that we deal with, a lot of things that the core of this podcast will remain the same. It will absolutely remain the same, but we're going to just address topics that we probably wouldn't have addressed in the past, because I think it's important and it's imperative, and it's things that I am passionate about, and because I am passionate about it, I want to be able to share it with you. Okay, so let's get started. There's a lot that has happened in the year 2025. As always, we're excited to be able to look forward to 2026. Why are we excited to look forward to 2026? Because we know that it is an opportunity for change. It's an opportunity to reset. Things can change in 2026. And no matter what you think, no matter what side you are on politically or whatever else, things can change for the better in 2026. So we always know that when we wake up in the morning, when we open our eyes, take that deep breath in, that right there is grace. That right there is an opportunity. That right there is a chance for us to get it together, for us to have another opportunity, for us to renew, revamp, reset, release, right? So this is grace. When we take that breath first thing in the morning, even if you wake up with some aches and pains, the fact that you're alive, the fact that you on what our elders would say, and I always pick up the elders, or because that's how I was brought up. Whenever you're able to be on this side of glory, is what they say, right? In the land of the living, right? Then that's grace. So that means we can always revamp, we can always reset, we can always release, we can always change. So we know that as we are coming towards the end of this year, things can change for the better. They can, and that's the outlook that we are going to have moving forward towards the end of this year. Okay, so I got my little topic, and let's start with the beginning. So the beginning of 2025 brought many changes on the political fronts. As far as the world, the war between Russia and Ukraine continued to be a central global crisis in 2025, with intense fighting and major international negotiations. So what we saw was constant blame game. I'm going to break it down just from, my perspective, and from what I've watched, from what I've read, from what I've researched. It's just there's been a lot of the blame game, a lot of deceit, a lot of misinformation between this consistent fighting, right? Consistent fighting that's been going on a very long time at this point. So we know that there has been constant conversations, and that's what it means when it says negotiations. It's conversation, and in which this party, and this party are supposed to come to some form of agreement, but so far has not worked. Even when one party might say, well, we're gonna stop. Right. We see this a lot. They're saying, okay, we're going to stop, and then next thing you know, they're still, invading. They're still doing things that's causing a lot of life loss. Right. So that's one thing that we're seeing is a lot of continued fighting and crisis between Russia and Ukraine. Okay. And so it's been going on for a very long time, and it has not stopped, even as we are ending the year of 2025. Relations between the United States and the European Union frayed, described by some analysts as a new Cold War. So there is some issues right now that has been going on right now between United States and the European Union, okay, under the President Trump administration. In 2025, we saw numerous powerful storms. I don't know if you remember, but there's been a lot of fires. There's been a lot of hurricanes. There's been a lot of tornadoes. And right now, this extreme cold front that even here, I'm in Illinois, and even here, we're seeing like the end of this really cold, cold front. Not only that, but we receive more snow than we have received for the month of December in years, So we've seen a lot of powerful storms, flooding, heat waves. We've seen a lot of wildfires around the world, from Southeast Asia typhoons to severe droughts and wildfires in Europe and the US. So there has been a lot of extreme changes in our climate, And I remember, like maybe the last 2 years, we were talking about here, we didn't really get a lot of snow or cold for the winter. And we were just saying how strange that was. And just knowing that when this year came, there was going to be, a lot of changes in our weather, like really cold, a lot of snow. We kind of felt that because we hadn't really got anything like in the last 2 years. And being here in the Midwest in Illinois, we're used to it and we're used to seeing it. And so all of a sudden this year we're getting that. So there's been a lot of horrible experiences that people are having with our climate. And we've seen it, like on the news. We've seen a lot of the wildfires that they literally could not get under control for long periods of time. So many properties lost, lives changed. We've seen the stories, we've seen the pain and the cries of people. Here, I know in California, they experienced a lot of that. There's been a lot that has been going on with that. And 2025, we've seen it to the highest level. I know with me personally, having this, your insurance company change on you because of that. Like your premiums went up, because of the fact that there was so much happening in other states, that even if you were not necessarily affected by that, you were affected through your insurance company. So my insurance company, wanted to go up because they have had to pay out, so much for all the changes that went on in the wildfires that went on in the state of California. So we also have seen this year, more than I believe in a long time, artificial intelligence, AI became a defining force in 2025. Time magazine named the architects of AI its person of the year. That's how powerful it has been this year, that they have made the architects the person of the year on their magazine, the architects of AI is person of the year, noting that AI's rapid integration into global society, economies, and geopolitical competition, along with ethical and social challenges. Now, the issue with that, we won't get in a lot of details about AI, because I personally, don't know the extent of AI. I do see the influence of AI. I do see, and this is probably at a minimum level that I'm seeing it, but I do see, how it could cause so much confusion. I was, prepping for this, and I was thinking about the different videos that I've seen on social media where you have professors who are really getting frustrated with students who are using AI in the classroom. Chat GBT. People are using that, and they're using that to, write their papers, to complete their work. And and professors are not having it. They are like, absolutely not, we're not we're not doing this. And it's not acceptable, right? It's cheating. It's absolutely cheating. I've heard people speak about AI, saying that people are taking it as the gospel truth when it comes to medical, when it comes to all relationships, when it comes to all type of topics, and it's not necessarily bulletproof, right? So you can't take, this is what they're saying, experts, that you can't take AI as the gospel truth. I know AI is supposed to like go into web research and pull out the information that you're asking. So if you ask AI or Chat GPT, please tell me some symptoms of COVID, right? It's supposed to go into the internet, it's supposed to get the research of COVID symptoms and give you that information. So that's what it's supposed to do. But experts are saying that people are relying on this as the gospel, especially when it comes to like their symptoms. And I think even before Chat GPT or AI, there was professionals, especially the medical field, were saying how people would use WebMD as the gospel truth, and as if it's the doctor. And so that is not something that they approve or think that we should do. We need to make sure that we are consulting physicians, right? And not just looking at Chat GPT. But Chat GPT and AI is the forefront of 2025. Let me give you some more examples. I have seen, which I had never seen before, where when someone is looking for employment, you're getting positions where they're asking you to like work with AI for different fields to work with AI. It might be a temporary position for a couple months, just so you almost training the AI on how to do that job. Or AI interviews, you go for putting in your resume, you get and they tell you you're going to do an AI interview, right? So right then and there, you're no longer talking to a person, but you're doing an AI interview. So this is just showing you in a very, like I said, a very small fraction of how powerful AI is becoming. And if this is just the beginning, oh my goodness, think about even when you're looking on social media like TikTok and all these other platforms, and you're seeing these videos. It has went absolutely crazy this year with these AI videos. Absolutely crazy. I mean, everybody is using it. Even the president of the United States, okay, is using AI videos. Sometimes they are obviously not real, and then sometimes you have to take a look to see, if it doesn't have, any type of mark on there to tell you and show you that this is AI. People have questioned, oh my God, I hope this is AI. Oh my God, is this AI? Because you really can't tell anymore, and that's just the scary place that we're in right now. We're seeing more of the robots coming out now. More people have actually invested into the robots now being put into their homes, and I mean there's just a lot going on with artificial intelligence. So there's a lot that's happening right now with 2025 and that. So 2026, and they, I'm just waiting, I grew up on the the Jetsons era. That was my time, and so I'm just waiting to see how far we will go in 2026 with AI. Okay, so one thing that we saw was in October there was a robbery at a museum in Paris. It captured global headlines as thieves stole jewel encrusted crown jewels. And it prompted a worldwide debate on the museum security because it was done in broad daylight, right? They just had a ladder, went up on the building, and it was done. So people was questioning that a lot. It took up some time in the media enough to be a pinpoint or a highlight of 2025. Okay. Other things that happened in 2025, the major domestic and foreign policy actions dominated the U.S. news all year, with President Trump's administration pushing aggressive immigration enforcement. So we know that there was a lot of things that happened immediately. In January, when the Trump administration took over, there immediately became this strong arm immigration enforcement, new visa restrictions, and other controversial policies. One major controversial policy that I, kept hearing and still hear is the desire to take away the birthright of citizenship. And that pretty much means that if a parent was not legal here, and then have a child, that does not necessarily mean that child is a citizen. We have always been kind of, with the understanding and taught that if you're born here, if you're born in any country, then you are a citizen of that country. And so they want to roll back that. And so that is a very controversial policy that is now still trying to be implemented when it comes to the immigration enforcement. So we've seen, even if you're not here from the United States, I'm sure you've seen the news, because it's become very global, right? To see the ICE agents and their interaction with protesters, or their interaction with just those that they are arresting. We've seen them with different stories, different people, personal experiences with family members who they say are on their way to work, and they're just gone. They didn't come home and their car is left behind. Or one recently here in the state of Illinois was I believe it was a daycare teacher who was taken on her way into the daycare. I know she's been released since then, but that was a major story. And I think, let me not say I think, I know one of the major concerns about these stories like this is because the original thought was that we are going to get, this is from the Trump administration, we are going to go after and get the worst of the worst, right? We're going to get the criminals. We're going to get those who not only have come here illegally, but those who have committed, crimes. Maybe they ran away from that country committing a crime. They've come here committing a crime. We're going after these people, these horrible, criminals and thugs and, all this. And so when someone sees someone going into their job as a daycare teacher who is loved by that community and the students, then it becomes extremely controversial, because it's kind of going against everything that was said prior to the administration coming to office. So I would not have the time on this podcast to go into detail as much that we have seen, and the way the operations have been taking place. I wouldn't have the time. But what I will say is this, because I'm going to give my opinion. What I will say is this: I think it is absolutely illegal for any form of government to go into people's homes, cars, on the street or whatever, and not identify themselves and take them off the street. I think, or take them out of their homes or out of their jobs or whatever. I think it is absolutely illegal to do that. Why do I say that? Because you have to identify yourself. Even a police officer, if a police officer pull you over, the first thing they have to say is, hey, I am the police. Hey, I am, officer. I am, you have to identify. Why do you think you have to identify yourself? These people are walking around with masks, right? They're covering up their entire face. They're not the SWAT team. They're covering up their entire face, okay? And they are driving in unmarked cars. So that's not like you can necessarily, know who this person is. They're driving in unmarked cars, and they're not all the time identifying themselves. So people have said, right? And so even the videos that I've seen myself, I do see them wearing masks. I do see them driving in cars that are not identified, as some type of law enforcement. Okay. And so the problem with that, this is very practical. Hear me very clearly. I am not here to talk or debate any political sides whatsoever. This is basic common sense. Hear me very clearly. The problem with that is what keeps anybody from snatching somebody off the street. Think about it. If a person does not have the credentials shown, if they are not responsible or told or obligated, that's the word I'm looking for. If they're not obligated, okay, they're not obligated to identify themselves. What makes a person know on the street if this person is who they say they are? It could be anybody who decide, I have a grudge against you. I want what you have. I want to rob you. I want to do whatever to you. And they could pull you over. They can box you in. They could take whatever you have. They could do, because they haven't identified themselves, right? So it could be a stranger. It could be just any person that can literally have a truck, put on a vest, and come with a mask on and just snatch people, and that's a dangerous thing. That is my issue. That is one of my major issues, is that they're not identifying themselves. I worked for years with the state of Illinois for the Department of Human Services. We had to wear our IDs to even go into our building, to go into the state building. You had to show your ID. You had to identify yourself that you belong there, you work there, you represented the state of Illinois. Like, how in the world is it okay for someone to just jump out of a truck, grab anybody, right, without identifying themselves? Now, there might be some that do. There might be some who are carrying credentials and saying this. But what I have seen, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I can go to 20. I don't care how many that don't. It's too many, because it's a dangerous game. It is a reason why our officers are required to wear uniforms, carry their badges, and identify themselves. It is the reason. We have had, you and I and both have seen so many cases where someone has been pulled over illegally by someone who's pretending to be a police officer and has done terrible things to individuals. So imagine the chaos that we're bringing to our streets when we are allowing people to drive around, to ride around in our states and not identify themselves. Period. That's a major issue. That's a major flaw. I'm not sure why they think that it's okay to do that, and why they feel like that is acceptable. Why are you undercover? You're not undercover. You're not a detective. You are an ICE agent. Why are you, covering your identity? Why are you hiding yourself? You are a government official. You're a law enforcement agent. Why are you hiding yourself? I mean, that's the part that I have a major problem with. And why is that acceptable? And why is that okay? Now, I said I was not going to keep going on with that, but you all know me. Once I get started, it is a wrap. That's just something that I never understood. And I feel like somebody can say, well, let me take this to court and say I've been kidnapped, because you don't know who these people are. Someone has snatched me off the street, and if somebody, this is what people have said. I do not, I can't confirm or deny, but this is what people who have had experiences have said, that they try to say, hey, I'm a United States citizen. And some people have said, they said, I don't care. Okay. Now, is this true? This is what people are saying. And they're telling them, I don't care. They say, wait a minute, I have the paper. I don't care. And I think that a lot of that is coming from fear. They're afraid. They don't want to deal with the people. They don't want to, the people around them. They don't want to be, cornered. So they just snatching, trying to leave that environment and that scene as soon as possible by any means necessary, but at the cost of people, civil rights and liberties being what? Compromised. Being compromised. Okay. So that's a major, major, major issue that we've been dealing with this year in 2025. There's so much more that I can say about that, but I will not continue to do that. I'll be on my soapbox all day. Okay. Another thing that's happened this year is the Trump administration scrapped plans for, and this is just recently, scrapped plans for the new quarters that honored abolition, suffrage, and civil rights, and instead favored traditional historical figures. So this is just recently. They've done that. So that is gone. On January 18, 2025, we had here what was called the People's March. I wanted to talk about that because we had several marches this year regarding, the changes that's happened here, major changes that affect people's lives. So we've had large demonstrations in Washington, D.C. This was January 18th, 2025, which focused on women's rights and reproductive freedom, in environmental justice, and civil liberties. I remember when this was going on, I was traveling, not traveling out of state, but I was driving. I was seeing people protesting everywhere about this. And what was, it was crazy because, even in some suburbs, I was watching people who were pro-life and people who, was protecting women's rights. And it was just everywhere. It was very, very, very chaotic. It was very chaotic. Another thing that has happened as of this month, the Kennedy Center. The Kennedy Center honors for the first time, a sitting president hosted this National Arts Gala, sparking debate and boycotts from some entertainment figures. So for those who are not, informed or know much about what's going on with the Kennedy Center, just know that it's completely changed. It's completely changed. It's completely different than what it, used to be. And those who played a major part in it for years have protested and have boycotted it, rather, and decided they're just not going to participate with the changes that has happened since this new administration. We've had also the No Kings Day. No Kings Day of Action, or what they call New Kings 2.0, where mass demonstrations were held primarily in 2025 across the United States in opposition to policies and actions of President Donald Trump's administration. The name comes from a slogan asserting that the U.S. is a constitutional republic and not a monarchy or any type of dictatorship. So, the critics have used the No Kings to criticize what they saw as authoritarian behavior. Okay, so I know one happened in June 14th, I believe, the first No Kings protest. And then they had one again recently, October the 18th, 2025, the largest No Kings Day of Action. This October 18, 2025, was organized by coalitions of progressive and civic groups, and they estimated that nearly 7 million people participated across all 50 states in more than 2,700 individual rallies. 2,700 individual rallies. That's a lot of people. 7 million people participated, making this one of the largest single day protest efforts in U.S. history. Wow. Okay, let's keep it going. We got a little bit more to talk about because what are we doing? We're talking about the hot topics of 2025. The hot topics of 2025. Okay. So let's look at January the 20th, 2025. Let's talk a little bit about DEI. I've had someone on here twice, and I'll have them again. They have a volume 2 book coming out in January. Just in February, but we're going to have an interview with them in January, and we're going to be talking about DEI again. So let's talk about what happened with DEI this year. So in January of 2025, one of the first things that he did was sign Executive Order 14151 titled Ending Radical and Wasteful Government DEI Programs and Preferencing. Interesting. This order directed federal agencies to terminate DEI and related equity, accessibility initiatives across the federal workplace and remove associated policies and offices. We talked about this in one of my previous podcasts, because this is when you saw a lot of people losing their jobs, right? This is a lot of people was losing their jobs. Federal jobs were being affected by these changes, okay? So after that particular order of 14151, a separate order, an executive order of 14173, revoked historic affirmative action related federal contracting requirements and sought to eliminate DEI influence on federal contracts. Okay. Now, before I continue to talk about DEI, okay, I'm gonna have to take me a little drink, it's water, folks. I said drink, you all think this is taking me to drinking. It's funny. Had to take that little drink of water because this gets me to talking a little bit, because I've heard people say, well, DEI is wrong, right? It's not fair. It's not equal. It's not right. It's not based upon your merit. It's based upon your race, your gender, your sexual preference. I've heard it all. And also social, economic, right? But this is what I say. And then we're going to continue to say this. There is a reason why this was necessary. And that's the part I think that people are forgetting. There's a reason that these policies and procedures weren't put in place in the first place. There was things done that was not equal. There were people who were qualified that was not getting the contracts or the jobs or the fair opportunities because of the fact that they were a woman, or because of the fact that they were a minority. Do you all understand that? Or because of the fact that they, they don't get the same opportunities because of their financial situation they was raised, or they have, they live in this particular part of the country. So there is a reason. There's a reason why these things were put in place in the first place. We want to focus on it's not fair. It's not fair because I might be qualified and I'm not going to get it because this other person comes in and they're going to look at them because they have to hire so many people that are women or so many people that are minority or whatever. But the fact is, some companies wouldn't have given a second look at a resume with a certain name. Okay, if they were not told, hey, equal opportunity for everybody. Okay. So that's another way to look at it. I'm trying to be honest and open and transparent because I think people like to see things just one-sided all the time. You just want to see things one-sided. Not understand that all of these things come from something. Policies, rulings, they come from something. They come because somebody was treated unfairly. Somebody was overlooked because of the color of their skin or their gender or sexual preferences. And so because of that, laws and policies had to be put into place to protect everybody in the United States of America. Okay? So now we see that the separate order revoked this, right? And it sought to eliminate DEI influence on federal contracts. Immediately following the executive orders, agencies like the U.S. Department of Education dissolved DEI councils, canceled DEI training contracts, withdrew equity and action plans, and placed federal DEI staffers on leave as part of the implementation. So right there, people are losing their jobs. The more cuts, the more jobs that are lost. Okay? These are real people. These are real lives that were being affected by these immediate changes without too much thought process being put into it. Honestly. Corporate rollbacks. Following the federal, signals and pressures, major corporations scaled back on or rebranding their DEI efforts in 2025. For example, Microsoft significantly scaled back DEI programs, removed diversity and equity language from performance metrics, and ceased its annual diversity report. They don't have to, They don't have to do it because now it's gone. It's gone. So in other words, instead of them having to say, yes, we have so many women here now. We have so many, men, here, so many people from this social or economic backgrounds or, whatever. Now they don't have to. They don't have to. Yes, we have so many minorities here, No, they don't have to. So they're not doing it, right? Anymore because they don't have to and they're told to get rid of it. Okay, we don't want that to be a part of our government programs anymore. Higher education, some colleges and universities eliminated DEI programs. They shut DEI offices. There go some jobs. They ended requirements like diversity statements and faculty hiring because you see on your on job applications all the time, they're asking you certain questions because they want to meet those requirements to make sure that everybody has gotten an opportunity or a chance. And now they have removed those. And this is often citing federal executive orders or political pressure as the part of their rationale. So they're taking them off. They're not doing it. And they're saying, hey, we're trying to meet the requirement of the federal government. So that's the reason why they're doing is what they're telling you. Hey, we've been told to take it out. And what happened, honestly, let's be honest, because if you're keeping up with what was going on, what was happening was those who did not decide to participate and follow the new rules and regulations of the DEI program, programming being removed. What they were told was that funding from the government will be withheld from them. And so a lot of them felt like they had no other choice but to remove these DEI mandates because if they didn't, they wouldn't get federal funding. Okay? And then in 2025, we saw that a lot of federal judges was blocking or struck down parts of the anti-DEI directives, especially where the actions threatened federal funding for schools, okay, unless they eliminated racial equity programs. These court rulings found procedural and constitutional problems with some enforcement steps. So, pretty much saying this, what you cannot do is tell a school that if you don't, take away your DEI programs, if you do not take away and remove these type of programs and teachings or whatever out of your school, then we're gonna keep our funding from your school. They pretty much let them know you can't do that. That goes against the Constitution. So a lot of federal judges were blocking or striking down a lot of the DEI directives because they went against the Constitution. Okay. Several school districts and states resisted the federal demands to certify that they had removed the DEI, arguing that the directives exceeded federal authority. Because a lot of things, the federal judges stated, it's constitutional, and it's not being sent through Congress to redo different parts of amend the Constitution. They weren't going through those type of steps. They was just signing executive orders and saying, do it now, change it now, make it happen now, quickly, everything. And the federal judges was coming back and saying, nope, can't do that. It's going against the Constitution. And so it was a lot of schools bucking back, towards these requests, and those who did was still constantly being threatened. Right? What else happened? Lord. In social media. We talked about this. Oh my God. We talked about this. Social media. Because I was really heated. This is one of the few times that you all see me kind of heated, because there was like this pandemic of people saying the world was coming to an end. Right? So it's actually called the 2025 World is Ending Trend. We saw the videos. We saw people talking about they giving away their stuff, giving away their money. They were preparing. There's one lady I said she was crying, saying, what's going to happen to her kids. And I thought that was like crazy, because I'm thinking to myself, so you're trying to say that you're going up to God, but your kids is not? What was the thought process? What was the thinking in that? Right? But this is what was going. 2025 has been extremely interesting, to say the least. Okay, so I did say in the previous podcast about this particular topic that I think it was like this pastor, don't know who he is as far as his name right now. I didn't write it down, didn't keep it in my thought process, didn't want to have it in my head. That he kind of sparked this as a prophecy that this was going to happen, right? And so the social media saw this, right? And apocalyptic anxiety. It spiked apocalyptic anxiety. It's what it's called, right? And it was driven mostly by viral posts, sensationalized predictions, okay? Misinformation, several unrelated global stresses. They just took a lot of things that went on. Our weather changes, all the things that I mentioned earlier, the technological change, the economic uncertainty, political instability, all blended into a cultural movement where people kind of like joked, and some wasn't joking. They was quite serious that the world was on the brink of ending, right? And so you have platforms like TikTok and X amplify the trend through memes, countdown videos, dramatic speculation, and it was a big deal. It was a really big deal. I know I was getting texts and calls saying, hey, you're still here. And, it was not funny to me. I didn't find it funny at all, because, there was a lot of people who was claiming to be Christians and believers, and they were participating. So I personally had a hard time listening to that and watching that unfold. I didn't find it to be humorous whatsoever. Overall, the world is ending trend of 2025 was less about, according to the internet was less about literal belief and more about collective stress and burnout humor as a coping mechanism and viral exaggeration fueled by social media. I saw people who were genuinely concerned, but there were definitely people who were making fun of them. Okay, so there was a mix. If you ask me, there was just a mix of dark humor, social commentary, and internet, dramatics. But it was very alarming to see that. So let's get to the last part. This is the last part of this podcast. And I'm going to end it on this because this is something that the pop culture of all of this, right? It bothered me. I'm going to try not to dig deep into the documentary itself because this is about the documentary. But I'm going to talk more about what people are saying after the fact, right? So, of course, we all have seen it's trending on Netflix. It's called Sean Combs, The Reckoning. Sean Combs. For those who don't know, Puff Daddy P. Diddy, right? So this is Sean Combs, The Reckoning. This was released December the 2nd, 2025 on Netflix. I personally could not wait. I knew about this like last year. I believe we heard about it when 50 Cent was saying that he was going, and maybe it was early this year. I'm not really sure. But I know he was talking about how he was going to release this documentary on Sean Combs. And I have been waiting since he had, since his case was over. I knew, it should be coming. Then I thought, well, maybe it was just a rumor, is it really going to happen? And so, to be honest, I didn't see a whole lot of publicity about it prior to. It was like quickly, it just told you like it was coming, and then it's like maybe a couple of weeks or so, it came like right after that. It was really strange to me. So I was like, and when I first saw it, the promo for it, I thought it was like a joke. Because like I said, AI and everything else, you just don't know what's real anymore. And so I said, oh my God, is this really happening now? Is he really getting ready to release, this documentary? And this was a 4-part documentary series. It was produced by Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, directed by Alexandria Stapleton. And I waited to watch it with my family. It's what we do with certain things. Certain things we kind of just want to pause, talk about it, pause, talk about it, pause, talk about it. So certain things you just, you watch by yourself in my house. And then there are certain things that we as a family like to sit down, talk about it so we can pause it, have a conversation. We talked about this for days. We literally talked about this for days. And, the more stuff we see, we still come back and talk about it because we just found it interesting, right? So what happened on this documentary? It touched several topics, right? It talked about the rise of, Sean Combs. It showed how he became the founder of Bad Boy. It talked about his connection and assistance with other artists. It talked about his legal troubles and convictions. It talked about his interactions with his employees, people, artists, and it talked about just a lot of other things that we kind of speculated, some things we didn't speculate. I think what was interesting or different about this documentary was it starting off with this footage that was filmed days before his 2024 arrest, showing him in New York City hotel room discussing his legal strategy and his federal case that was coming up. But I think what other things that was interesting is hearing from people that we probably hadn't heard before. Some people I've heard before several times. I've heard them from TMZ, because they did their own story maybe a couple of times. So, but there were some that I had not heard speak. And that was important to hear that. But there was, some themes there. There were some things of what you've heard before in the record companies where they don't pay the artists what they are supposed to pay the artists, or they don't pay them at all, or something like that. I think that's something that has been happening over time for years, where we've seen record companies take advantage of their artists. It's just a thing that has happened. So we saw that. I'm gonna tell you what did bother me. There was so much that bothered me. Let me be honest. But to see men that was so hurt, who knew him for so long, who felt hurt, who felt betrayed, for several reasons, right? There was so many things. There were some bombshells that I didn't know or hadn't heard of, especially the guy who started Bad Boys with him and dealt with his finances and all that. Those bombshells was eye opening, jaw dropping type of things. Just to hear, just that pattern of, people around, and somebody said that a lot of people around him were, coming to their demise. It was so much happening around him personally, but he seemed to just make it all the time unscathed, right? Even when it was legal things, right? Unscathed, right? So that was really concerning. I did not like, and I'm gonna say this, I did not like the one juror that we all saw. It was the African American girl who cheesed, just smiling, not because she was a happy person, but just smiled through the whole interview as if this was like, a joke, and I think what she did was tell on herself. Let me tell you why. I have this documentary in my head, just because certain things just stood out to me. Okay, so there were two jurors, right? And the one guy said we were not allowed to make eye contact with him. We knew better, right? We're not supposed to look at him. And she said, yeah, there's plenty of times that Sean Combs would look over at them. He kind of when something was said that he thought was just, unbelievable or outrageous. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not saying what she said verbatim, but this is what the gist of what she was saying. And she said, pretty much that he would look at them like, can you believe this? A lot of shock, like, come on, And then she said, yeah, and when I agree. There were some times I looked at him, and and I made those. We had the same thought. We had the same, expression, right? And the director, I'm assuming that was the director, who asked her, well, what was the moment, right, that you all had that in common? And she, went over the moment in which the assistant, told the story of how he kidnapped her at gunpoint and take her to look for Cassie. And she just felt that was so unbelievable. She was unbelievable. And she laughed, like, come on, I'm thinking, see, we're supposed to be unbiased, right? And then she said that she wasn't a fan. She knows of his music. She grew up on his music, not a fan. Come on. No. Now, I do know that the lawyers get an opportunity to, speak to the jurors and decide, who stays and who goes. I think in this case, they dropped the ball on her. In her case, they dropped the ball. She, and I'm sure it was, if it's her, it's some other folks too. I mean, who don't know? And it's in New York, and that's his place, New York. And I think that they dropped the ball on some of that, because she was obviously, I'm not trying to just single her out, but hey, she's in the documentary, so I can't help but call you out, sis. But she was obviously a fan. She was obviously a fan. Her saying that she made eye contact, her saying that she agreed with him and they had the same thought process. How do you even know? I mean, what his thought process was like. Why are you concentrating on that part? You're supposed to be listening to the testimony and listening to it unbiased. Unbiased. It just didn't seem real. And then the guy, him saying, the other juror, him saying that what, and this was unbiased. This was not unbiased. His opinion. This is his opinion based upon his limit understanding of people who are victims of domestic violence. He didn't understand how Cassie can, be abused and go back. He didn't understand that. To him, that messed up her credibility. I don't know if anybody caught that. I don't know if anybody heard that, but I did, and I didn't. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure he thought that. I'm sure he thought that. And so the unbiased part was not. It was not existent in that jury. It didn't seem to me, because just even the two who they decided to interview, who agreed to interview, probably shouldn't have interviewed for this documentary, because they did not make themselves seem unbiased or fair. They already had preconceived ideas that they took into that courtroom. Him thinking that you can be abused and over time, mind you, I don't know much about Cassie or P. Diddy. We're not getting into any of that, but just knowing the fact that she was young when she met him, it's been all those years being, in this environment. If you don't understand what that does to somebody, then you should be quiet, because people have often fell in love with their abusers, stayed with their abusers, and their abusers will darn near almost, take them out of this world, and they still go back to them because it's a stronghold. It's a strong thing, right? So it's not something that you can say, oh, why didn't she just leave then? Why would she go back? Like, he didn't understand or believe that she was a victim based on the fact that she went back. He said this in the documentary, and I thought to myself, oh my goodness, these people are not being unbiased at all. They got these preconceived ideas about certain, because we're human, right? We're going to have our ideas. And this went into that courtroom. Okay, let me get off my soapbox about that. But those two, I didn't think they were helpful to the case being heard, and being treated fairly. There was so much in that documentary that was quite disturbing, quite alarming. Just showing his character, right? It was just really, really bad. But then you hear people, everybody have their own, sides about things, sides of how to handle things. But it just seemed that, like even the pattern of everybody who has a girl, unless y'all circle is so small, everybody who have a girl, you want to snatch them that girl. It was weird. It was just really weird behavior. But this is what bothers me outside of that documentary. Okay, so after the documentary, we see several celebrities, let's use that word, celebrities, right, who came out, who had something to say, directing specifically to 50 Cent. Had nothing to do with the director. They're going straight for 50 Cent, right? And they are, their comments saying stuff like, kicking a black man while he's down, kicking a man while he's down, and karma, and all these different things that I have heard, read, and saw that they put out there on their own social media page in attack to 50 Cent, right? He not clean himself, and let me put your dirty laundry out there. Da, 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 da. This is what bothered me. What in the world are you talking about? What in the world does that have to do with what you have seen on that documentary, or any of us? Like, what kind of society are we living in where it is okay for us to watch what we watched, whether it's, These are people in their stories. Like they literally interview people with their own trauma, their own personal experience. So you're not saying it's all lies. You're not on here saying on social media, he's a liar, he's a liar. You're saying, why kick a man while he's down? What is you talking about? What you talking about? What are we missing here? What are we missing here? Kicking a man while he's down. What are we talking about? Accountability? Oh my God, are we living in a world where we're literally going to just constantly dismiss cruel, traumatic, vicious behavior, hateful, angry, domestic violence? Like, are we just going to assaults on people? Are we going to completely disregard all of this as a world, as a community? Okay, are we going to dismiss this because of who this person is? Is that what we're doing now? What are we talking about? Let me tell you something. That made me livid. It made me livid. I could not believe the people was more concerned about how dare you all, putting this. I'm talking about celebrities, okay? That was not. It's not a lot. But a couple of them that came out who said it, I was just like, why pick up your phone or your little computer, or your little laptop, or your little app, whatever you use, and decide to take your little fingers and post anything about in protection for what Sean Combs was accused of doing in that documentary? Why say anything? And if one more person say kicking a black man while he's, oh my God, what is wrong with us? Like, are you kidding me? You know what's funny? Those victims were black, right? So save me the speech. Save me the speech. Why do we do that? Don't throw that in there. Don't throw that in there. Do not throw that in there. That was so offensive to me, and it ain't even me. I don't know 50 Cent from nothing, but that was unbelievable to me, to just take your time and make all these posts and it's going back and forth. He's handling it really well, right? Because that's just what he does. He doesn't care. But me being, an African American woman, and watching that and watching everything before that, and being and kind of being raised, during that time, and growing up doing all the stuff that was happening while it was happening, to see people kind of constantly, let me tell you something. What you do when you do what you're doing, as far as making all these posts and saying kicking me, kicking somebody while they're down, all you doing is telling yourself. You're telling yourself. You're making yourself look bad, because this is not a fight that you would want to be in. This is not a fight that you would want to be in. You're not protecting. He's grown. He could protect himself. And his whole regime can. But it is time that we stop normalizing hurting people, abusing people, taking people for granted, having no values for our people, having no morals for our people, having no conscience for our people. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You all show more compassion for him than you do for those poor people who were sitting here telling you that they were hurt, that they were abused, that they were assaulted. I mean, the story kind of starts off with the lady who's telling you that when she was younger, that happened to her after she was in a music video with him, and she tells you what happens to her. She reads the letter that her mother wrote to his family. Like, her pain is there. Are you kidding me? And you worried about kicking a millionaire, while he's down, while he's literally have completely made these conscious choices and completely has stepped on pretty much everybody's head on his way there. Like, and he would do you too if he get a chance. Like, I don't get that. It was bothersome. Can I say that in a nice way? It was very bothersome to watch and still watch people go back and forth, back and forth. And I'm like thinking to myself, it shows your character. It shows who you are. If you decide to look at that documentary and decide, I'm going to tell, everybody in the whole world, this is what you did, and you don't have a right to, throw no stones. And, okay, let me tell you something. They told the story. The people who were hurt. They told the story. They have a right to tell their own story. If somebody has hurt you, abused you, mistreat you, cheat you out your money, or, all kind of things that was listed in that documentary and other documentaries, they have a right to have a voice. Why is that so hard to understand? And what y'all not about to keep trying to do is normalize, to just keep pushing victims in the back. They don't exist. Their pain don't exist. It exists. These people are hurt. And you're getting over it. People just going on their life getting over it. And they're thriving. And like she said, you're going on and you're thriving in your life. And her life has forever been changed for the worse. And I understand that. I completely understood when she said that. For me, that gave a lot of validity to what she said, because she spoke from a person who has been a victim. Because that's what happens. The person seems to go on with their life and they're fine, but they have left behind somebody who has been damaged. So if y'all want to come together as a community, then y'all need to start learning to come together as a community for those who have been hurt, for those who have been mistreated and abused. You got sisters. Y'all got sisters. You have mothers, you have aunties, you have nieces. You know what I'm saying? And in his case, it was not just women that he hurt and abused, but there were men too. So are you all kidding me? Are you kidding me? It's the stuff that I saw, it was real. I feel like I'm a very good judge of character, and I'm gonna stand by that. Okay. And so I might not always, say that person is, no, they're not right. But I already, I could say it in my head. I probably not openly say it to everybody. Hey, that person ain't right. But I could see it. I could definitely see it. And I saw a lot of pain. I saw a lot of pain. I saw a lot of hurt. I saw a lot of hurt. That was the word for me in that documentary. People were hurt. To see these grown men cry, based upon what happened to them was hurtful. It wasn't just money, y'all. It wasn't just money. it was betrayal. It was violations. I mean, there was a lot. And there was things that people, have questions about and they kind of make fun of in their own way. But, I'm going to say this. You just never know what people go through, why they go through it, or why they deal with it, or whatever else. And just pray that you're never in their shoes, right? Because we don't know how we will handle things until we are in that particular place, right? Because I know now at the age of 50, a lot of things that I said I never would have dealt with, I never would have, put myself through, I never would have tolerated and all this. Yeah, I tolerated that and more. I've dealt with that and more, right? Because you just don't know until you are faced, right? A lot of people who go through different traumatic events, they would tell you, I never would have thought. I never would have thought. People who have become victims of domestic violence would say, I never was that person. I never thought that I would have allowed that, to happen or whatever. So, and because it don't always happen at once. There's a lot of grooming. There's a lot of time that is put in to get a person in a mindset to tolerate a lot of stuff that the average person is just not going to tolerate. And if things happens immediately, then you are able to brace for it. You're able to deal with it. But after you've been groomed over time, you don't necessarily know how to deal with it because you've been changed, right, over time. You've been prepped over time to tolerate more and more and more and more and more. So it takes a very strong person to open their mouth and say, hey, I've been hurt. I've been victimized. I've been mistreated. I've been assaulted, right? It takes a big person to admit that and to say that. It takes a lot of strength, and a lot of you cowards don't have that type of strength. A lot of you cowards do not have that type of strength. And I'm saying anybody who decide that they are going to make fun of, or they're not, or they're going to push back and hide the victims of any of these cases that we've seen, including Epstein files, that we've been hearing people, I heard of that years and years and years ago. And just to, even that, people who, what is the reason? Why do we need to do it? And all this. I didn't even mention that in 2025 hot topics, but definitely was a hot topic. And so I could conclude that with this, for those who want to feel like, what is it? Why is it important? Why? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Because once again, it has changed somebody's life for the worse. These people have been hurt. They have been broken. They have been traumatized. And a lot of these people were minors. Are you kidding me? That's why. That's why. And so, when somebody would say, well, to release those things going to hurt a lot of people. What about people that it was done to? Why are we now living in a world where, once again, we care more about the abusers than the victims? I don't like that. That is not something to normalize, people. That is not something to normalize. To care more, concern yourself more about the one who did it, the crime, than those who were a victim of the crime. Your compassion, your concern is for those who did it, and not for, we know people go through a lot of stuff sometimes and get to that point. If that's your type of compassion, then okay. But still, there has to be accountability. And we are not about to shut the mouths of the victims and push them to the side as if their voice doesn't matter, because you want to protect those who have power, who has money. Are you kidding me? Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. So that is what bothered me. I saw that a lot in 2025. And for it to end with 2025 with that same theme of quieting the victims, not giving them a voice, so that those who, were the ones who committed the acts are able to be protected, is shameful and is horrific. It's shameful and horrific. And I am praying that, things change in 2026, and that those who have been hurt and mistreated get their just. They deserve it. Absolutely deserve it. It's not for me to, try to figure out why did they, do it, or, stay, or, go back, or any of these questions people keep saying. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So I am praying for those who are victims of any type of assaults or abuse or domestic violence or any of those things. I'm praying for you as we conclude the year 2025. So we have talked a good time. And we've hit some great topics of hot topics of 2025. 2026 is going to be great. I can feel it. It's going to be great for us. It's going to be great for this this platform. Please share this platform. Please share this podcast with someone and let them know that we are hitting the topics. We are hitting things that are important, things that are life-changing. So we're hitting these topics as we conclude this year, because I want us to deal with what is affecting us. And all these topics that we talked about today has directly or indirectly affected you, and it has affected me. And so that's important. That's why we're dealing with that. But understanding that things can change, things can and will get better, no matter what it looks like, no matter what it feels like. Understand it can and will get better. So I always say, I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what it feels like. I believe God, right? I believe God. So believe that with me today, that no matter what it looks like, no matter what it feels like, we're going to believe God, believe that things can change, things will get better, believe that, we can handle everything that he allows to come in our path. We were built for this. We were made for this. He has strengthened us to handle this. Okay. So thank you so much for listening to Renew Mind podcast. I have been honored to be your host, Michelle Cook Hall. This is going to be a great season coming up. I want you to get excited. I want you to remember that we're going to start doing this revamping as soon as we start January. We're going to get ready to our first show is going to be January the 8th. And I'm excited about that. And we're going to have some good information to share with you. And then after that, we're going to continue to start, hitting these topics and sharing and having, special guests on as we always do. That's going to be able to be something that you can relate to, something that's going to be informative, helpful. We have had so much, so many wonderful guests on here that has taught us. Recently I was going over a lot of our footage, a lot of our audio, a lot of our videos, and realized we have had some great people on the show from all facets of life and have brought so much of their experience and their talent here. So if you get a chance, go back and look at them. You can look on YouTube, look on the Renew My Revolution podcast. We are on there, and you can see some of the guests that we've had and some of our topics. We've had entrepreneurs on here. We've had millionaires on this show. We've had financial gurus on this show, real estate gurus on this show. We've had people who survived cults on this show. We've had people who have survived dealing with mental health crisis on this show. So we've had so much educators on this show, just different avenues of life, but all have come together to share with you, to pour into you. And it's a blessing, trust me, because each one of these people that I have had the pleasure of sharing with you have come to me. So, I'm not like looking around researching for, what best guest can I bring to the show. They come to me, and so that lets me know that they know what the show is about and that they are, accepting it, and they have a desire to share with my audience, with my specific audience. So that's why I always say like tailor-made for you, right? They're tailor-made for you because they already know what we talk about, what we share, and that they have something that they feel will line up with this and that will be helpful to you. So I want to say to you, Merry Christmas. I want to say Happy Holidays. And I want to say Happy New Year, okay? Because I won't speak to you until January the 8th. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. I am praying for you. I am, and how I do that, you might say, how can you pray for me? You don't know me personally. I pray for my listeners. And so I'm praying for you. I'm, standing before God with your concerns and telling him to touch your household and touch your families and touch your life, and to, bring about a change for you for the better, okay? So that you can be stronger and that you will be able to complete the assignment that he's called you to do. So God bless you guys so much. I love you. But what's most important is that God loves you more. God bless you and have an outstanding remainder of the year. God bless.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe. Please remember to check out Michelle's bestsellers Faith vs. Fear and Breaking Family Ties. Available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Have a great day and thank you for listening to Renewed Mind Revolution podcast.